What's up, football fans? Welcome back to the channel. The wait is over. The time has come. We finally have Dynasty news today. Everybody's been looking forward to this day for a long time. It's here. Whether you're a diehard fan or you're new to the series, this video is going to be packed with all the information you need to get ready for the Dynasty Mode in College Football 25. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more epic content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss any of the updates. Now, let's see what the Dynasty Deep Dive has in store for us. I went through the video and also the blog post to compile a list of things that I think would be important to you. And starting off was building your coach. A big part of Dynasty Mode is the development of your coach. And in this information, they went over archetypes, abilities, coach progression, the importance of your assistants, and the coaching ladder and carousel that follows every season. Think of the archetype system as an improvement on what Madden does when you start a franchise as a coach. You can either choose between a motivator, which is going to be focused on player progression, a recruiter, and a tactician, which focuses on game day boosts. This is a coach's main identity, and you have to be really strategic in this game because you're not going to be able to max out all three. The part I really liked was the fact that you have to meet certain criteria to unlock higher level archetypes. The example they gave for this was to become an elite recruiter, you must spend 50 coach points in the recruiter archetype and sign 2 top 5 classes. I'm a big fan of this because it'll take time to achieve that. You're not going to do that in one season. It's going to take at least 2, and that's if you recruit at a high level. In this mode, you're not going to be able to be Nick Saban overnight. It's going to take some grinding and some effort to reach the top skills, and I think that's rewarding in a game like this. The abilities are an extension of the archetypes, giving your coach specific advantages. There are more than 50 coaching abilities in the game, with tiers to each one, similar to what we saw with the players. What's new, though, is the fact that most of them are position specific, meaning that you have to level them up separately, forcing you to spend your coaching points wisely. This is extremely important when it comes to positional needs in recruiting. I believe it's realistic because you have schools and coaches that are known for cranking out certain positions in the NFL. You got wide receiver U, tight end U, all those things. Schools and coaches are known for developing that specific position. So on this game, your coach is going to only be able to do certain things until you level them up. So if you choose to start with a quarterback, you may neglect something on the defensive side. So it's really all about balance. But with the abilities themselves, they ensure that each ability has a counter, making sure that there's a balanced system across the board. So if you're getting killed on the run, you can switch up your abilities or develop your abilities to stop the run. So everything has a counterbalance to keep things even. To progress your coach, you have to level them up in a way similar to what we saw in NCAA 14. There are 4 Coach XP Gold categories that can be done in single game, weekly, season, and career. These look a lot like they did in the old games, with points being rewarded for things like having a player drafted in the first round, beating your rival, and signing prospects. There are new ones, though, that offer points for cumulative team stats, also being ranked in statistical categories at the end of the year, and winning multiple championships. They reinforce the importance of coordinators. Now, in this game, you can hire coordinators that either share your strengths or cover up your weaknesses. Abilities stack, so if you share strengths, the benefits will be increased. They didn't talk specifically about the multiplier, but hopefully that'll come out later. If your coach focuses on a certain position, it might be beneficial to have your coordinators cover up the deficiencies to round out your coaching staff. If you're a quarterback whisperer, you might want other coordinators that focus on other positions, maybe helping out your offensive line and winning the battle in the trenches. However, you choose how to do it your own way. You have the freedom to coach entirely the style you choose. Coaching ladder and carousel were things I was super excited to see, and I'm a big fan of the updates they made. Coaching contracts are back, and you're given expectations you have to meet or risk getting fired, kind of like the old games. Job security is also back, but this time it's a little more realistic, where bad losses to weaker opponents will count more towards your meter. You can choose to leave the school at the end of the year and jump on the coaching carousel, just like the old games. Another change, though, is that this is going to start earlier. This is going to start in the conference championship week now, and you're going to be offered a contract from your school or told that you're not going to be returning. And then it's going to progress through the different stages. The first round of job offers will come out during bowl season, and that'll kick off the domino effect. A few new things, though, the schools will be looking for when they're deciding who to hire. In addition to the things we saw in the old days with just your record and coach prestige, now they're going to be looking at your scheme fit, the type of archetype that you're running, as well as your primary recruiting pipeline. That's something I'm going to be talking about here in a little bit. Moving on to what everyone wanted to see, that is the revamped recruiting. In this part, they covered the 3 stages of recruiting, which is discovery, pitch, and close, the school grades and how they're going to impact things, where the recruits are coming from, what the recruits' motivations are, and the new pipelines. Those things I'm going to break down, starting with the school grades. So for that, they have 14 categories, similar to the old games, but some are not. But they're going to go across 14 categories. They're going to grade them from A+ to D-. There are going to be things like playing time, playing style, those type of things. A lot of them are going to change. A lot of them are going to be things that can change. But what I found interesting is some of them are stuck. They're locked into that, like campus lifestyle. That grade cannot be changed or impacted no matter what you do. So if you have a bad campus lifestyle grade, you're just going to have to deal with it. Same thing with, what was the other one? Academic prestige. So you're not going to be able to do anything about that. But the other ones, you're going to want to line those up with what the recruit wants. We're going to get into that when I talk about the motivations. But essentially, your school's going to be graded in these things. You're going to want to work really hard to improve the grades in the ones you can control. Two key takeaways from recruiting before we dive all the way into it. Teams with higher team prestiges are going to have more recruiting hours each week starting out. And this is to model the recruiting resources a major program has versus a smaller program. The example they used was a 5-star program is going to start off in the offseason with 1,000 recruiting hours compared to a 1-star program only having 350 hours. That's going to give them a huge advantage, but is a little more realistic because of the resources they're going to have at their disposal. The next one is the default maximum hours each week for a player is 50, but you can increase that up to 70 with specific abilities. So this is where the abilities come in and I think are productive because you're going to be able to get those little bit of advantages. 20 hours a week over the course of the season is going to add up. The next one is scholarships per year. That was something that a lot of people were estimating. The old way was 25. Now it's up to 35, which is going to be nice with the 85-man roster-ish. You have the ability to overhaul your roster pretty significantly in 1 year. Something to keep in mind, though, is this scholarship number accounts for incoming freshmen as well as your transfers. You're going to want to balance that out and not use up all of your scholarships on incoming freshmen. You're going to want to leave some spots for some transfers at key positions, especially if you've lost some players to either NFL or to transferring themselves. A surprise upgrade was the realistic locations that are known for producing high-level college football players now being reflected in the game. They've really focused on improving realism, and this is a cool new feature that I'm really excited about. The examples they gave were Southern California being known for producing great quarterback talent. Now you'll see that reflected in when you're recruiting that part of the country is going to have a better chance at producing some better quarterbacks. The next one's East Texas consistently producing some of the best wide receivers in the nation. They go on to say not only are they going to have talent in East Texas, but when you're looking at East Texas, the receivers are going to be a little bit bigger and more physical than the other receivers you'd find across the country. On average, I think it's going to be average based. They're not all going to be that way, but it's going to have a better chance. And then the last one was South Florida having incredibly fast, deep threat receivers who are known for their smaller size. So being able to see those prototypes in these areas is something that's going to be really realistic and something that I'm super excited for. The recruits' motivations are going to be key to the whole process. On NCAA 14, you could just throw points at guys and hope for the best. That's not going to be an effective strategy on this game. Recruits are going to have 3 motivations that they care about. Which motivations they choose are going to be influenced by their star rating, which I think is really interesting. A 5-star prospect is going to care more about getting to the NFL, winning championships, and growing their brand through NIL opportunities than a 2-star. 2-star is going to be more focused on things like staying close to home, coach stability, and academics. Something you probably see a little more in real life. Close to home could go either way, but the rest of them, they're going to be driven by that star rating. If a recruit doesn't align with your program, you're going to have an uphill battle to sign them. So in the old games, you could just keep throwing points at somebody. You could have had a D+ in that category. They didn't care because you were just throwing points at them. Here, you're going to be chasing an uphill battle because it is only 3 things that they care about. There's also a chance that one of the 3 pitch motivations is going to be a deal breaker. If that's the case, that's going to represent a motivation that a recruit is extremely passionate about and will not budge on. If they have a deal breaker in that category, there is no way to sign them. There is no workaround. There's nothing. You have to give up and pursue someone else. Key to this is these deal breakers stick with these players. So if this individual decides to transfer after year 1, they're still going to have that same deal breaker. So you can't get that. That guy is lost to you unless your category improves to align with what they want. Next up, we have the overhaul of the recruiting pipeline themselves. For this, it used to be just plain and simple. If you had 3 or 4, however many players it was in each state, that was your pipeline on the old games. Now that's out the window. They used historical data over the last 10 years to identify what parts of the country each school recruits in. So they use this information, and then instead of doing 50 states, they reshape the map to represent geographic regions versus just simply the states. This was done to balance out the quality and quantity of all the recruits coming in the area. So an example of this would be Florida. Instead of it being the state of Florida, is now 3 separate pipelines. You have North Florida, Central Florida, and South Florida. Another example where some cities are going to exist. The one they used as an example was Metro Atlanta. So I was under the impression before this video that Metro Atlanta would be part of Georgia, but it is completely separate. So Georgia, the whole state of Georgia outside Atlanta, will be broken down into another region, maybe combined with another state, I'm not sure. But Atlanta itself is one region. So out of the 50, that is one region. I know I'd heard rumors about maybe DC because they put out a lot of talent there in that one little region, that it might be its own. We'll have to see on some of those. They took some of the smaller areas and combined them together. So you may see some Midwest type stuff, but the example they used was New York and New Jersey combining into one. And that's to get the sheer number of talent to kind of equal out some of these other areas. Within that, you have a pipeline level for each school based on how they've recruited that state. So if you look at a state like North Carolina, each school in North Carolina is going to have North Carolina in their recruiting, but they're going to have a different level, and that level is going to determine how well they're going to recruit that state. So this will boost a recruit's initial interest in the school and impact on all the pitches. The school's pipeline never changes, ensuring schools that have been historically strong in recruiting are given a slight advantage. Personally, I understand the logic in this, but without any recruiting cheese, it's going to be very difficult to recruit small schools and build them up. Major change to recruiting is the utilization of the 3 distinct phases. In the discovery phase, you're going to learn general information about the player, but you're also going to start identifying their skills and their motivations. You can continually scout them to unlock all their ratings, but it's at the beginning you're only going to have the basic height, weight, things like that. As you scout them, you're going to unlock everything else gradually. It starts with what they consider partial scouting, where you're going to get a bar that covers 25% of the space there. So if you have 0 through a 99, it's going to have a little 25% area that their ratings are going to fall somewhere in there. So it doesn't give you an exact number, but you get a general, very general idea. You go up a little bit more, you're going to get what they consider mostly scouted, and that's going to shrink that bar down to 10%. So you're going to get a better idea of where he falls. If he's going to be above average, below average, that's a better sight picture. And then finally, you get fully scouted, which is going to give you all the information for their ratings. The thing it will not give you is their dev trait. But to get their dev trait unlocked, you're going to have to wait until National Signing Day or on a visit if you have the mind reader ability. The last part on this is the gym and bus system is back. It seems to be pretty similar. You're going to be able to identify those diamonds in the rough. You're also going to find guys that aren't up to the hype. So that's something that I really enjoyed looking for those dudes to build my program around. You're going to have that back in the game. The pitch phase starts once the recruits have narrowed their list down to 5. That's when you're going to start showing the prospect what your school has to offer. It's important that you have the scouting done by this point because you're going to want to align your pitches with stuff that they care about. If you send a pitch that they don't care about, you could actually lose points and have adverse effects on your recruiting. There's two different types of pitch options. You have the soft sell and the hard sell. The soft sell offers less points, a little less risky, but you have smaller penalties if you're wrong on that particular topic. The hard sell offers much more upside, but harsh penalties if you're wrong. So that one's going to be your aggressive approach that's going to have a lot of boom and bust potential. Stage 3 is the closing phase, which includes the official visit. For official visits, you can host up to 4 players a week, each costing 40 recruiting hours per player. The visit's broken down into 2 different parts. You have scheduling the visit itself and then the activity for the visit. There's 14 activities you can choose from, so you want to know which motivation your player is focused on so you can design that activity around that particular aspect, maximizing your bonuses. It's really important to pick the game that you host them to, because each game comes with its own set of game day stakes, is what they call it. Essentially, if you pick a game against a weak opponent, you're not going to get really good boosts. But also, if you lose that game against a weak opponent, you're going to get heavily penalized. So you're going to want to kind of structure that game. Pick a game that's going to be somewhat impactful, maybe a rivalry game or something that's going to give the recruits a reason to care. And then you're going to want to go out and execute and win that game. You could also go the other route and try to upset a top team, something like that, but that comes with its own negative recourse if you don't win. So that's recruiting for most of the in-season stuff. Now we're going to get to what a lot of people care about, and that's the transfer portal. First, before you start the transfer process, you have a chance to keep these guys around. So the example they showed on here, it was for transfers and guys leaving for the draft. After the season, you're going to have a chance to pretty much persuade them to stay at your school. That's similar to the old game where you could promise them things. It's going to be a lot like that. But for the transfer portal, if they do go in the transfer portal, you're going to free up those scholarships. So I talked about this briefly when we went over the number of scholarships, but you're going to want to save some space, because if this happens to your team, you're going to have more spots than you have guys, and you're going to need some transfers. So you're going to go through a similar process, looking at what these transfers care about, lining up their motivations, and then trying to recruit them. It's going to let you know on those screens, though. It's going to tell you if it's a need or not. It's going to tell you what they're ranked. It's going to rank them just like they would the high school players, and they're going to tell you the previous team they played on. So it's going to be a similar process. They're going to have deal breakers, things like that, but it's going to give you an opportunity to fill up your roster. They changed up the way signing day works, which is interesting. Now there's 2 different signing days. Just like in real life, you have your early signing day, which is going to take place during the start of the bowl season, and you're going to have National Signing Day, which is 7 weeks after the national championship. Most of the guys are going to commit. Most of your verbals, they're going to sign on the early signing day. A couple are going to linger around, though, and that's when you're going to have to execute that between the 2 signing days. Also, the transfers are going to be after the early signing day, so you're going to have to take care of those in the same time. Once signing day comes, though, those guys are stuck on your roster. They're not going to leave. That's when you're safe. All you have to worry about at that point is keeping them happy once they're there so they don't transfer. But any recruits that are unsigned will stick around and become walk-ons on the offseason. With that being said, the days of a player who was actually being actively recruited, not committing anywhere and drifting, are over. You're not going to be able to do that recruit cheese. I think that's huge. A lot of people really enjoyed that, but it's gone, and it's going to make the rebuilds a little tougher. Past recruiting, you have the preseason. I went over some of the actions that go on during that. It's your standard stuff. You have position changes, player progression, and scheduling, those types of things. I wanted to touch on, I'm not going to go through all that, but I wanted to touch on player progression because that was something I was really curious about. There was 2 ways I thought that was going to go. They were either going to go with the old system, which I felt was very unlikely, or they were going to go with the Madden system. Part of me hoped it was the Madden system, but this one looks like a better balance than either one of those. So I'm pretty excited and really couldn't be happier on the decision they made. For this, you're going to progress week to week at a point, but most of the player development is going to come in the offseason, which is pretty expected. You're not going to magically get good between week 1 and 2. You're not just going to be Randy Moss all of a sudden. But with that being said, they're going to progress a little bit. So using those freshmen, you're going to develop them and level them up a little bit to where they're going to be better and better and better. And then the offseason comes around, they're going to get those big improvements. The best part of this is they're going to target the improvements around realistic increases. So your freshman rising into a sophomore is going to get more upgrades than your rising senior. The rising senior, you already know what he is, so he's not going to improve as much, which I think is a really good process here. But you also have some perks that are going to multiply some of these things. With that being said, we're going to jump into the biggest surprise of this whole thing, and that was dev traits. I hadn't really put too much thought in that. I wasn't sure if they would ever add dev traits because they were college kids. Wasn't sure how that was going to work. But they did come out with dev traits similar to Madden, but also different. So you have your normal dev trait, which is going to be most of them. Your impact player, which they say can really change a team. They'll progress faster with higher upside, kind of like Madden. Then you have star, which they consider a potential Sunday player. So those are your NFL caliber, cut from a different cloth type guys. There are very few of those to go around, and they'll establish themselves early as fast learners. And then you have what they consider elite. That's the best of the best, making a statement from the time they walk on campus and have the potential to be an all-time great. So as I discussed, dev traits you're not going to find out right away. You're going to have to wait, but they are in the game. Once he's on your roster, you can see the dev trait. It doesn't say anything about upgrading dev traits. So I know Madden, you could do different challenges. Like if you get 3 touchdowns in a week, it'd upgrade it. I don't know if they'll do anything like that, but that'd be interesting to see. The rest of the blog post was pretty detailed in all areas. So I'm not going to cover all this because this video is getting long. But if you want to get it's a good read. It doesn't take too long, but it covers schedules, it covers customization options, it covers wear and tear, skills, impact players, things like that. The new college football bracket. Pretty much anything you want to know is on that blog post. It will get you ready for the game. But there's only one other thing I wanted to talk about, and that was the use of redshirts, because that one really stuck out to me. I was hoping it was going to go this way, and this is just another one that they knocked out of the park. So for the redshirt process, it's going to be realistic. 4 games. On the 5th game, that player can no longer be redshirted. So it doesn't matter when you use it. You can use it any 4 games. For me personally, I like that because if I'm deciding between 2 quarterbacks and I don't want to burn a red shirt, I might start that kid and I see what he got. We'll see what he has. And maybe he's the guy, maybe he's not. And if he's not, red shirt him and wait another year. Same thing with some of my young corners late in the year. If my corners are getting beat up, maybe I want to play them a little bit and see what they have and see if they can play at that level. At that point, I probably wouldn't burn a red shirt, but it'd be nice to get them a little bit of experience. And that wraps up our deep dive into College Football 25 Dynasty Mode. I hope you found that information exciting and informative. Now I want to hear from you guys. What features are you most excited about? And what tips and strategies are you looking forward to trying out? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys think and starting some great conversations about College Football 25. Your insights and strategies may help someone else in the community, so that information is really important. If you have any questions or want to discuss anything more, feel free to reach out to me on social media. All my links can be found in the description. Thank you for watching. I'll see y'all in the gridiron.